Greetings. Welcome to another episode of Expert Witness, our bonus series where we talk to special guests about some of the content we share on the show. Poison, true crime, cocktails, madness, and more. From historians and psychotherapists to authors and doctors, we love to get different perspectives on crime, poison, and entertainment itself from people from all walks of life with different areas of expertise. In this episode, we are joined by the wonderful TK from the podcast For the Love of History, a podcast that is there to help you fall in love with history all over again. This is an outstanding show that is created for lovers of world history, women's history, and weird history, and TK is just a joy to speak to. We recently did a guest spot on For the Love of History talking about Aqua Tofana, and we wanted to extend the invitation back to TK because she really is a delight and has so much interesting information to share with the world. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about poisons from Japan, the kinds that will put you down for a bit, the kind that will stop you ever getting back up again, as well as methods of administering poison in very creative ways. We also talk about the business of podcasting itself and the beautiful area of Japan in which she lives. And you may never look at your cup of tea the same way again. Enjoy. Hello, TK. Welcome to the Poisoner's Cabinet. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm really, really excited to be here.
Yay! We're both so excited. We always, when we speak to each other, we're like, yay!
I know. I love just lots of who's the guy? Wallace and Gromit? That's how I feel. Just waving my hands like Wallace and Gromit all the time.
Love it. Love it. Hopefully we both like cheese. It's all good.
Yes, obviously.
Excellent. So you are speaking to us. This is the most confusing time zone, I think, that we've worked on when we do guest things, because you are in beautiful Japan.
I am. I'm in Japan. It is nighttime here. It's like almost 5:30 at night. I've had a full day, but it's okay. It's great. Yeah. I'm happy to talk to you. And
that's always a good start. I like it.
Yeah. When people think of Japan, they usually think of like Tokyo, Osaka, the big city, but not me. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, which is fabulous if you love nature and nothing else.
There's just
so that's
nothing.
Where I am. There's just rice fields and just so many temples and so many shrines. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you would love it.
It sounds idyllic. I'm sure
fabulous.
To most people, like, to see that one morning. Have you done thousands of mornings and now you're like, I long for a
so
subway.
many mornings. 8 years of mornings. But no, it is. It's really lovely. I love it. It's a really cool place because it's just steeped in history. It's a very traditional place, and I love that kind of stuff. That is actually what I got my degree in, is in Japanese history and history education. So that's why I moved here.
That's why you're there. Fantastic. So for those who don't know you yet, and hopefully by the end of it, everyone will be very firm fans, tell us a bit about you and your fantastic podcast, For the Love of History.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I have been doing For the Love of History for 4 years. It's a pandemic podcast, as I like to call them. So many podcasts popped up during the pandemic, and I was one of those podcasts. And thankfully, I am still going strong 4 years later. The podcast was born from my desire to get people to start loving history again, because I feel like we were all those kids who loved those, those eyewitness history books that maybe if you didn't have them, they were really large illustrated history books that had like big pictures of like a Roman soldier's helmet and then like a little excerpt next to it, or like an Egyptian mummy and then there was a thing next to it. Like, everybody loved those books when they were a kid. Everybody loved history.
Core memories are unlocked when you look at the joy of looking through those books. Looking at those pictures and learning and going, oh my God, I love history. And then that graduated up. I don't know why that stopped. But then when we got older, it was like, no pictures for you, just words.
Exactly, right? And I'm a proponent of picture books for adults. So, and that was one of the things that I wanted to bring back with my podcast. That's why it's called For the Love of History, because I'm a firm believer that nobody hates history. They just had a bad teacher or a bad experience Victorians. Just a bad time in school learning about history. So that my goal is to bring back that love, bring back that excitement, talk about world history, women's history, and weird history in a way that's like chatting with your weird best friend that just knows a bunch of random stuff.
And can attest it is an incredibly good podcast. It is a lot of fun, a lot of detail, a lot of research, but again, conveyed in a way that is so accessible. It is a great resource for people as well. And sometimes you dip in and go, okay, I will learn a lot from this, and I will learn it in a nice way that is not the dry, boring lecture that maybe we're used to from the past.
That is my goal.
I love the way you call it, again, a pandemic podcast, which is, I think a lot of us can relate. I think we always say we started just before the pandemic. We started in February 2020 and everything was fine. Everything was fine. There were rumblings, we call it. And then suddenly we became a pandemic podcast. It's crazy that time. I can imagine for you starting the podcast and seeing so many podcasts starting, so many people that were going, and which ones continued and which didn't, and I think it's literally, I was realizing I'm coining the phrase of your podcast here. It's literally for the love of the content, people
Truly,
who wanted to do it. It is, and there were people who thought, hey, this will be a really good thing to do, and then you realize the amount of work that goes into a podcast, that it's not just a thing to keep you busy. It's suddenly, oh, this is a job. Oh, this is a whole thing.
Right? Exactly. I started For the Love of History on April 1st. The promo went out on April 1st so that if it crashed and burned, I could just say, April Fools, guys. It's a joke. I'm not really going to start a podcast. Gross. For real. I really did that.
That's a great strategy. I like it.
So for me, starting it, I was a teacher when I first started it. So I still am a teacher now. I was a high school teacher teaching English here overseas in Japan. And when the pandemic was like really, really going hard in the 20s, in 2020, my classes were completely cut because students weren't allowed to talk to each other. They had to be masked up. I taught behind a plastic curtain, like a shower curtain, basically. And I was masked up and I had a face shield. And so it just got to be to the point where teachers were like, well, the kids can't talk anyways, and that's the reason that you're here. So just sit
and they can't
in the teacher's room.
Even make the mouth shapes of the words.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Right? So they were like, just sit in the teacher's room. And I was like, all right, like, cool. I started, I had this idea. I had loved listening to History Chicks. I'm a huge History Chicks fan.
Yeah, great.
And I listened to them for a long time, and I was like, I could make a podcast. Full confidence, because I did not know. Started by recording on my phone with royalty-free music playing from my iPad in the background. Just not knowing what the hell I was doing. That's how it got started. For 3 whole years, it was just like I had 2 full-time jobs with one that didn't make any money whatsoever. And then finally in the 4th year, things, took off and it was going well, and it continues to go well. So yeah.
Oh, from humble beginnings to where you are now with an enormous fan base. And rightly so.
Thank you.
Today you have got some stories for us. Well, you've got some information from the mind that is your brain of the incredible history from different countries, and obviously you've looked through, you've got some stories. I was a guest on TK's podcast recently, and we were talking about all things poison, given that is our favorite thing to talk about. And then you also had some information that you wanted to bring onto the Poisoner's Cabinet as well. So it would be great to talk about that. I'm also really interested as well in what drew you to Japanese history as well. So you've obviously studied history, you're originally from America, but you've lived in Japan for 8 years. And what was it that drew you to Japanese history in particular?
So really, it was just serendipity. Went to university. I initially started out in the nursing program because I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to help people. Took my first nursing class. I was like, oh man, blood is not cool. Can't do this.
I love your little voice. I love the optimism. I can picture you marching into uni. Yay! And then you come out, no!
Absolutely not. No one told me there would be blood. Can't do that. So then I went into the student union building and I talked to my my counselor.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, what am I gonna do? And they were just like, listen, just get through this first semester. Like, we still have the ability to change around a few classes. Mm-hmm. So let's just change a few classes and then see what you like. And there was a Southeast Asian History 101 class. And I was like, nice. I guess I like history. Like, my dad is a huge history fan. I marginally like it. You know, I love pirates in Egypt. And I walked into this class taught by Professor Woods, Dr. Woods. He had this giant picture of Tokugawa Ieyasu on the screen, and he's one of the great leaders of Japan. He's one of the top 3 dudes, and he just looked like really cool with all of his armor and swords and voluminous layers of clothes. And I was like, yeah, I could get into this. And then I took the class and I was like, history is the shit. Like, I love this. And changed my degree. Changed my major.
Fantastic. That's, again, serendipity, isn't it? Just walking in and finding that one thing. And now this is change your life.
Yeah, really. And I studied it and I loved it and I found out more about it and just it was super cool. And yeah, I just decided to move here without knowing any Japanese at all and just came.
The rest is history, as it were.
Exactly. Truly. Yeah. So that's how I got into it.
So today you have some fun stories for us that are from Japanese history. And I think people are going to be very excited about, because what are you going to talk to us about today?
Oh, we're going to talk about ninjas. And we're going to talk about ninja poison. Oh my goodness.
Goodness
Ninja
me.
poison.
So we only dabble on the show on Eastern poisons and poisons from that sort of part of the world, and it's something we really want to cover a bit more. Those who know, obviously fans of the show, will know that Nick is a big fan of China. He spent many years out there and working, and he would go there, and so he's had some stories from it, but really from Japan, very minimal that we've done. So ninjas, everyone's heard of them, but probably most of us go, ninjas. We know some stories, but they're probably not true.
They're probably more on the legendary side than, They love pizza. I don't know.
Yes, they do. They are told what to do by a rat from a sewer. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But you're here to set us straight.
I am. I'm here to talk about them and to talk about their practices in poison. But before we get started with that, I want to talk about something that has been all over the internet recently, as of late, as of recording of the episode. It's something called the Assassin's Teapot. Back in 2021, this man named Steve Mould, Mould, I think that's how you say his name. He is this physics guy who talks about different sciencey thingies, and he unlocked the secret of the Assassin's Teapot, which is basically this teapot that has 2 vessels inside, and you can pour the different liquids based off of where you put your thumb. And that way an assassin can be like, yeah, man, like, we're drinking the same tea, except that tea is poison and my tea isn't. So when I go to drink mine, I'm drinking from the part of the vessel that is not poisoned, and you, my friend, are drinking from the part that has poison in it.
Of all of the poison vessels, that we have. You have poison rings, and you have little, you have hand contraptions that people use, like the Borgias, that could sort of press poison into your skin. But the teapot, there's something elegant about it, and there's something very refined about the tea.
Exactly.
Terrifying.
They're very fancy. Yeah. So this assassin's teapot has been, well, the nature of assassins and ninja is secretive, right? So we don't have any official documents saying like the ninja used this teapot that came over from China. We do have documentation in China from the Ming Dynasty about the teapot, and it was initially developed for optimal tea brewing capabilities because tea is a very important part of Chinese culture. And so that's how it started. And then, as many things in Japanese culture have started out in China, this teapot then came over to Japan at some point in time, and it was maybe used, maybe it wasn't used. So we're not quite sure if it was 100% a thing or more of a legendary thing. But don't be sad, because I have some actual verified documentation of ninjas who are known as shinobi. The name is interchangeable, but I just have to put that out there because I'm sure somebody will be up in the comments being like, actually, no, I know, I got you. Colloquially, they're called ninja, and historically, they're called shinobi. So I'm going to use those two words interchangeably. The ninja, the shinobi, to start out with, began in the 12th century, and they really took off in the Sengoku period, which is from the 1467 to 1615. And they were hired to do the dirty work of the samurai. So at the same time the samurai were doing things, the shinobi were doing things.
Right.
And they came from two places in Japan, in Shiga Prefecture. And that's the most important thing that you need to know. And that's it. Okay, so that is a very brief history of the shinobi. They were used to do the dirty work of the samurai. And we have several handbooks that were created by these shinobi families. We have the Kumiokite, and then we have the Bosenshin Kai. Those are two of the most famous books that we have about the shinobi, written by the shinobi.
For those who don't know, some people will be very familiar with this, but the difference between a samurai and the shinobi.
Yes. So samurai were the people who were wearing the armors. They had the swords. If you have seen The Last Samurai, those are only samurai. If you have seen the new Shogun series, there's the beginning episodes where a woman sneaks into the building and she like tries to kill one of the dudes. That is a shinobi. Right. Samurai are the warrior people, and shinobi are the sneaky assassin people. So you'll see them portrayed in media as wearing, black, the typical ninja costumes and things like that.
Gotcha.
So that's the main difference. Samurai, open combat. Shinobi, sneaky business. Yes, exactly.
Fantastic.
In those two books that we were talking about earlier, there is some information about poisons. A little bit of information here and there. It talks about how the shinobi were well versed in astronomy and botany and the natural arts, and so they were really good at making poison and making medications. But that's all the information we get until 2017, when an old man from Shiga Prefecture comes out and is like, "Hey, up in my attic I have these 2,000 different documents about the shinobi."
Just sitting there. Just they're there.
Exactly. Just randomly for the last 200-ish years, just
they're
chilling
just
in my
under
attic.
an old board game, and they're next to a Thigh Master that no one used.
Exactly.
You're just like, these could be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
And so he brings these 2,000 different documents out. And of the 2,000, there are 17 manuals, full manuals that explicitly explain how to make poisons, how to cultivate plants to make poisons, how to combine different things, how to use the poisons, and also how to do night raids and how to use poisons in night raids.
Oh my
So we get
God.
all of this information from these 17 manuals. So today, I know, right? I'm going to tell you about some of the most, I thought, interesting poisons that we found in these 17 manuals.
Okay, please do. Please do.
We're going to start off with things that won't kill you, because poison doesn't necessarily have to kill you, right?
No, of course not. It can just delay things or slow you down or just make you think about what you've done.
Exactly. So the first poison that we have that won't kill you is called the nemuri yaku. And this poison is for sleep. And it is crushed up shells of a dung beetle. So fun.
So fun.
That were often mixed into tea. So you know, as the shinobi in your whatever mission it was, you would somehow get your target to drink tea. And that probably wasn't super hard because they were tea drinking fools. Everybody was drinking tea all the time.
Yeah. I think it's, to state again for those who don't know that, I don't know if there are some people who are listening kind of going, why was everyone drinking tea and not beer or, Negronis? It's very much part of the culture. Tea is the thing.
Exactly. Tea was the thing. It was the water. Like everybody was just drinking tea. It was safer to drink
Serve
tea.
it properly. It's not just in the microwave.
Exactly.
It is a proper tea set and everything.
Yes, exactly. So this is our first type of poison that we get in the manual. Starting off slow. Just gonna make you real sleepy. Gonna make you fall asleep. And that could be used for... Yeah, exactly. The sleepy time tea. Although I don't recommend continuously using crushed up dung beetle in your tea. Maybe don't.
Maybe don't.
Yeah, exactly. So then our next type of poison is called the metsubushi yaku. This is essentially a powdered pepper spray.
Oh.
And we have the Portuguese to thank for this particular type of poison.
Okay.
This metsubushi yaku is a combination of ash ground up and then dried out chili peppers ground up and combined, and you make it a little bit wet enough to like hold together as a ball, but then when you crush it in your hand and throw it, it turns into a powder. And that capsaicin in the chilies get in your eyes, and the chili is not water soluble, it's fat soluble, which means you can't wash it off with water. You can only wash it off with something fatty and oily. So then when the people would go wash it off, it would just spread all over their...
This is
just get worse and worse and worse. Yes.
There's so many toxins that are like that. You know, it's sort of like if you get now more advanced, if you get a chemical burn, there's certain ones, it has to be vinegar that you put on it and not water. And I can imagine, sorry, I have a whole bit in my head there of someone going, I can't get this off. And someone going, I've read about this. It's like a jellyfish. Pee on me. Pee on me.
Pee on me.
No.
Not the pee. That's a different one.
But you would panic. Like if you're trying to get it off. What an ingenious, oh my God, that pepper spray just to deter someone, throw them in the eye. Oh God, it's so good.
Exactly. So if you were a shinobi trying to get away from a situation, you'd just be like, pepper spray, and then you run away. That's what
I like
you do.
that. I like that
Yeah.
for networking events. Okay.
Right?
I don't want to talk to you.
I'll get you the recipe after this. I'll email it to you. And our last poison that won't kill you, but it was heavily used, is called aho yaku. And this translates to stupid poison. I would just like you to venture a guess as to what plant was used in this poison.
Oh, okay. So,
What do you think?
stupid poison, thinking laterally, it's going to make you kind of dumb or stupid or disorientate you. So I'm thinking maybe either a hallucinogen or marijuana or something that's going to make you
Ding,
kind of
ding,
a bit... Hey, There we are.
Marijuana.
Well, just, to give you that kind of, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, actually, super interesting random fact. Marijuana or hemp plants have been in Japan for 11,000 years.
Yes.
That's how far back we can trace the marijuana, the hemp. And so what the ninja would do is they would make their own wacky tobacco.
Yeah.
They would take the marijuana, they would dry it out, they would mix it with tobacco, because I don't know if anybody has ever partaken in the sticky icky, but it has a particular smell. And if it's not mixed with enough tobacco, then you can clearly smell it. So there was they had a particular ratio of marijuana and tobacco and some other things that they would put into this loose leaf tobacco, and then they would get their target to smoke it, or they would sneak it into their pipe or something like that, to then get them to divulge their secrets, to get them a little loose.
Oh, so they're actually using it as a tobacco rather than smoke bomb or anything. I mean, because you'd run away from that, I'm sure. I went really extreme there. I was like, yay, smoke bomb. Like, oh no, just sit down. But they're putting it in the pipes, and then everyone's getting loosey-goosey and chatting away. Oh my God, it's so good.
Exactly.
It's so good.
So it was like an old-timey truth serum, basically, but it's like truth tobacco.
Truth tobacco. That's what we should be calling, that's what we call weed now. Truth tobacco.
Truth tobacco. It's now canon. Poisoner's Cabinet canon.
You heard it here first.
Those were the three that were very often used, but they're not going to kill you.
Yeah.
And now we're going to move on to the poisons that will definitely 100% kill you. Give you a horrible case of the murders.
Of the deaths.
So the first thing, dog lovers, I'm so sorry, because this next poison is all about killing guard dogs. Because in the Warring States period, the best home security that you had was a dog. And dogs really get in the way of ninja activities. They developed a special type of onigiri, which is a rice ball that contains something called machin in Japanese. In English, it is the strychnine tree. Seeds from the strychnine. And strychnine is
horrible.
Crazy little chemical that just like shuts off the nerve signals to your muscles. Just like, good night.
Yep, that's
to all of your muscles. Exactly. And as an avid listener to the Poisoner's Cabinet, I'm sure you guys have covered strychnine.
Many times.
Right. So this poisonous little seed was crushed up and mixed with rice and used as rice, this rice ball machin poison for guard dogs to eat. And it would, in most cases, not kill them, but just immobilize the poor puppies. But if the mixture was off, it could definitely send our four-legged friends to an early grave, which don't love.
No. And strychnine was used in England, the Victorian era as well. You could buy it, and people bought it in the shops when arsenic was more regulated. But strychnine, oh yeah, go absolutely crazy with it. Go crazy with it. But people would use it and say, oh, we're using it to kill pests. Or people use it, oh, there's cats and stuff, when that was just absolutely fine, like cats wandering into your garden. But I think with the strychnine, because it's such a horrible poison in the human, because it will give you that your back is bent like a bow. That's the description, because of it shuts off the nerves and the muscles seize, and it looks horrible, and you get the rictus grin. I mean, unfortunately, the guard dogs, if you need to get in, that's you got to get rid of them from their perspective. It's very sad, but there we are. Okay.
Very sad. There we are. So we're done with this. Well, we're not done with the sad. I'm so sorry. We've just begun.
That was a Freudian slip, though, wasn't it? Is it? We're done with the sad stuff, i.e. animals dying. People, absolutely fine. And I completely agree with you.
You know what?
It's not, it is sad. It's terribly, terribly sad, but it's a different kind of sad.
Yes.
It is a different kind of sad. Animal death is a
Yes,
different kind of sad. Let's acknowledge it.
It
Doesn't
is
mean that human death isn't.
100,000%. Exactly. Because they don't know. They have no idea what's going on.
Don't. I'm too sad. No, it's too vulnerable.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah. They didn't
Okay,
do
let's
anything.
move on to the people death.
Yeah. Much happier times. Much happier times.
The number one most used poison in all of ninjadom was the monk's hood.
Yes.
Called torikabuto. And monk's hood is also known as wolfsbane, in the Western world. And this poison was the most versatile. This poison, in the right amounts, could kill you in less than a minute. So if you remember those ninja movies that we watched in the early 90s and 2000s, where they would have the blow darts, where they're like, and then a dart would come out and somebody would like almost instantly collapse. Well, that's not that far from the truth.
Yeah.
Because monk's hood would be like mixed with different like saps or honey sometimes, or anything that was a sticky residue that could go onto daggers or darts or flaming arrows, which was totally a thing that the ninja would do sometimes, just have like random flaming arrows. They would put this sticky poisonous residue on these weapons to kill people. And that blow dart is a real thing. It's called fukiya, and it's used. We have evidence of various forms of fukiya in different museums all throughout Japan. And there is a fun fact, there's a Department of Ninja Studies at Mie University.
Perfect.
And they do some what is it called, experimental archaeology, where they have tested out these different tools and these different poisons, and it's absolutely wild, some of the things that they've done. NHK, the basically like Japan's BBC, put on this whole series called The Ninja Truth, and it's actually it's been dubbed in English, so you can go and watch it. I'll send you the link, if you want to put it in your show notes. And it's so interesting, some of the things that they do with this monk's hood, because it can also be brewed into a tea. We're doing a callback to our assassin's teapot.
Yeah. Monk's hood is aconite, isn't it? The same thing, and it's a neurotoxin. So that's the way it gets to you so rapidly, and it still can get to you. And it's so beautiful in nature. People have them. You go out and you see the monk's hood and the beautiful flowers. So pretty, so deadly.
Yeah, right? They're like I think they're purple, aren't they?
Yes, there's predominantly purple. I think you can get some white ones as well, but the common picture you'll see is a purple, and it's this hood like a monk's hood, this bell shape.
Yeah.
And that was so accessible and sort of grows wild, and people could crush it up and just like, a perfectly deadly toxin. Great, we'll be using this.
Exactly. Yeah. And so another way that the shinobi would use this monk's hood is that they would brew it into tea, and this tea smelled like roasted peaches. Oof. And peach tea is not uncommon in Japan. There's peaches all over the place. People love peaches here. And if you've never had a Japanese peach, I highly recommend that you get one.
We'll try. I'm worried now about it, but I mean, sure, we'll risk it.
This tea would be used to kill people, just to take out assassins, or to for the assassins to take out their target. And, after a while, people would get a little like dubious about peach scented things. And there's actually a really interesting story about one of the great shoguns of Japan. I do believe it was Tokugawa Ieyasu. Pretty sure, I'm like 90% sure. Somebody was trying to assassinate him, and this is all legend, right?
Yeah.
Somebody was trying to assassinate him, and he smelled the tea, and he forced the person who served him the tea to drink that tea. and they died. Like that was the legend. So yeah,
quite common though. Yeah, if you have a leader, it's sort of you have your tasters and people. Back in the medieval period in England, that was happening all the time. It just taste my tea, or put a shark's tooth in it.
So that was the use of monkshood, and then our final poison for the day actually comes from almonds. Yeah. So there are two varieties of almonds. Now there is only just the one, because the poisonous one has been basically bred out of existence. There's like a few varieties. The most common variety of almonds used to be the poisonous kind, and people could extract the almond juices, oil, I do believe is the technical term, and it was poisonous. If you ate too many of those almonds, you would get a stomach ache if you didn't eat a whole bunch. You would start having partial paralysis if you ate even more, and then you would die if you ate too many of them. And so people would just, cut corners and extract the oils from the almonds and use them as poison. And they would use it in the same way as they used the monk's hood, by putting it on daggers, putting it on blow darts, on flaming arrows. They would put it in tea. They would also use it in different snacks, because almond snacks are not all that unusual. So now that variety of almonds has all been, bred out, but that is our last poison. Oh. The almond poisons.
Almonds and poison have a long history and association with cyanide. And the common misconception is people go, oh, well, cyanide smells of almonds. And it's not true. Almonds smell of cyanide. People famously talk about cyanide is in apple pips as well. So if you eat enough apples, then you'll, the core and all, then you might die.
Yeah, right.
But the favorite poison of Agatha Christie, and she used many of them, but always that association with something that smells of almonds and everything can be put into, then you can use it in cakes and teas and loveliness.
Right.
For cyanide, certainly. But actually, the almonds are poisonous.
Exactly. So the shinobi had all of these poisons at their disposal and more. I mean, we're talking 17 different manuals full of poisons. And this is all that we, have had access to as of right now. And eventually, back in the Warring States period and on into the 17th century, there was such a proliferation of poison that the shinobi amongst themselves sent out an edict, and they were like, hey guys, we gotta stop with this poison. It's getting a little bit out of hand. So no more poison cultivation. And it just stopped in the 17th century.
But it does mirror what was happening in Europe at the time. The terror of poison, the absolute fear of it, and it was reaching its real peak in that period because people were learning it and they were growing it, and there was influence again in Europe that people were gathering from the East, from China and from Japan. They would have been hearing that. They would have been obviously cultivating their own as well, but that was reaching such a fever pitch around the world, and certainly the Pope was talking about it, and people saying this terror of poison because we can't control it. So it's interesting that it mirrors that even the shinobi are saying nope, no more poison, no more. Okay.
Ooh, guys, no more of this.
I guess is that a way of them controlling it, or saying, this is getting out of hand because too many people are wielding it and it's not being handled properly? Or is it, I don't know why they would say stop.
Yeah, it was a bit of both. So in the 17th century, we have the Tokugawa shogunate starting. And this is Japan's unification is happening. We finally have, peace in Japan. The samurai have, they're kind of teetering off a little bit. And because of that, the shinobi are also teetering off. There's really no use for assassins much anymore because we're in a relative time of peace. So it was partly that. It was partly the fact that the shinobi were just making some just incredible, deadly poisons.
Yeah.
And so amongst themselves, they were like, hey guys, like we have been making some crazy stuff, y'all. So maybe we need to like slow it down. So it was a combination of peacetime was coming, the poisons just were getting out of hand, and people outside of the shinobi clans were starting to get in on the poison. So they were like, we gotta lock this shit down.
Yeah.
Because something super interesting, whether it's a weird serendipitous occasion or because of this, I'm not quite sure which is which, but the Shiga prefecture has a really weird climate, and it is the perfect climate for growing poisonous plants and medicinal plants. And that's the prefecture that the shinobi, whether it was because of all of these plants, they, set up their home base there, or it just happened to be that way. That's where the two most powerful clans of the shinobi settled, was in Shiga prefecture. And so they had control of where the majority of these medicinal and poisonous plants were being grown. Yeah. Because the climate elsewhere in Japan was not quite suitable for these places.
Okay.
Yeah. Even now, in the year of our Lord 2024, there are more pharmacies in Koga, which is a city in Shiga prefecture, which is where the Koga shinobi were from. There's more pharmacies and pharmaceutical manufacturers in that area than any other place in Japan.
That concentration.
Yeah.
Of growing perfection.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can understand they'd want to control that area and say, this is ours.
Exactly, right. They're like, ooh, if this gets into the wrong hands, things could go sideways. And there is even, just like a bonus thing, shinobi also made a lot of medication. Made tons of medication. And one of their undercover costumes, I guess, that they used is a medicine hawker, like a nice. Traveling medicine man. And so this is one of the pictures that I sent you in the email. Yeah. So if you go to those pictures, you can see the second picture is a shinobi, a ninja, with his traveling medicine cabinet.
It's huge.
Yes, yeah, right. It's really, really big.
It is massive, and then that's incredible.
It's yeah. And then the first picture that I sent you is actually a kabuki theater actor. So kabuki is a type of play performance in Japan, and this is a kabuki actor pretending to be a shinobi who is pretending to be a medicine peddler. Yes, exactly.
It's crazy. But it's again of the
so cool.
Mixing of all the worlds and all of the legends as well of the different areas, because of course, over history, people, poisons came from medicine. They came from, from cunning women and from herbalists working way, 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 way back, and certainly back into Roman antiquity. This was just using the plants that you had for medicinal purposes, and then you would find out their properties. But then later, it was very easy for its small time period to sell these poisons, to sneak them into people's houses or into your pockets on the guise that you are a medical professional. You are I can never say it. No, it's my stutter.
Apothecary?
That's it. That's the way around, because I go apothecary and it's it's apothecary. There.
Apothecary. There we go.
I do videos on this, and people just go in the comments and go, "It's apothecary," and I'm like, I know. I have a stutter and it won't fix. There it is.
It's okay.
Got to drug it.
Everybody knows what you mean. Yeah.
But they were called that. As that guise of a medical person, as a medicine man or a cunning woman, that you could come and say, I have your tinctures, I have your medicine, and also here is some poison. Here you go. Here's how I can trade it across the world. It's so easy to slip it in, and no one would have been able to tell the difference. I love it.
Exactly. I love it too. And just as my last little random fact, the number one most sought after medication from these ninja doctors was medicine for your tummy.
Aww. Yeah. Aww.
Right.
And that's not gonna work.
So funny. No, you're definitely gonna die.
People eating weird stuff. I'm not surprised most people wanted an antacid or something. This doesn't feel right. Well, you've been eating gravel, so we said not to. But we didn't know until you tried.
Exactly.
Yeah. We did again. And speaking of testing things, we did recently, and we mentioned on our bonus episode when we went to the poison gardens of England, one of our favorite facts we got was from the medlar tree, which grows sort of apple-like fruit, but that fruit is cyanide until it rots. Essentially, in a roundabout way, it is poisonous until it rots, and then they find out later when it rots it was actually quite tasty. So like a kind of back in the medieval period, you didn't have a lot of choice.
Yeah.
You didn't have a lot of choice. And what was growing. But then it was like, oh, how did we test this? Until then, it's like, oh, this rotten fruit, this won't hurt you. Everyone was eating the fruit and dying, going, does it disagree with them? Or, oh, no, it's poison. Okay, right. Well, let's just keep eating it and see what happens.
I want to know who the first person was to be like, you know what? All these people have died. But now that the fruit is rotten, let me just give it a little nibble.
Line up, people. That's it. There's always got to have been someone who tried it first.
Exactly.
Who tried it first and who experimented with it and learned it. And learning that through, and often it's through certain people who have access to wealth, and also a lot of slaves.
Yeah.
Who can come in and go, just come in and have some tea.
Right.
Just come in. Oh, you've worked so hard. Try this one. Not that one.
Not that one. I know.
People using the poison teapot and going, wait, which one was mine? That isn't the same? Sure.
Just throw out the whole batch, I guess.
Oh my God. TK, thank you so much for those brilliant facts.
I'm so glad.
From Japan's history of the ninjas as we know them and the poisons that they wield. I mean, it's so wonderful to hear about those and those documents that now exist in the last 7 years?
Yeah.
That we now know where they recorded them and then say, by the way, here it is. Mm-hmm. Here's the recipe.
Exactly. It's really, really cool. And it's such a serendipitous occasion to find them in like an old dude's attic.
What else was up there? That's what we need to know.
Right? I know, right? I hope they went and searched.
Thank you so much for that. That is just a snippet of the kind of history that TK shares regularly on the fantastic podcast For the Love of History. TK, where can people find you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, if you would like to find me, I am on all of the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, the other ones, I don't know,
the other ones.
The Google podcast, everywhere. I'm on Instagram at @forthelove_of_history_pod. And I'm over on TikTok too. And yeah, I've got a Patreon if you're interested in some bonus content and supporting the podcast if you like what you hear. So that's where you can find me.
Outstanding. Please do go check out For the Love of History, a fantastic podcast to brush up on your history, but in a fun way. Thank you once again, TK, for joining us all the way from Japan. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, month, year, until we speak again.
Thanks. It was my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
We hope you have enjoyed this latest interview with our latest expert witness. Please do check out For the Love of History. You will not be disappointed with the content you receive. If you have suggestions of other expert witnesses you would like us to consider having on the show, please feel free to email us at thepoisonerscabinet@gmail.com or leave a message on any of the social media channels that you follow us on. Thanks for listening. In the meantime, keep drinking, keep talking about poison, and remember, your loved ones are trying to kill you.